Hey guys, it's me, Miss Smith. Today we're going to be subtracting fractions. Okay, subtracting fractions is very much like adding fractions. One of the main differences is you subtract. Let me get a pen out first. That might help. Okay, here we go. So one of the main differences is you subtract the numerators. This is, of course, the top number in a fraction. So you just subtract the numerators instead of adding them, okay? So the first part of this is we're going to do the steps of subtracting. Now, I have a graphic organizer here for you, so you can copy the notes with me. Okay, what do you think the first thing is that we do? Well, what do we do with adding? We have to find a what? Very good. We have to find the least common. Okay, I have 3 blanks here, but I meant to put least, but that's okay. Okay, least common denominator. Okay, the denominator means the bottom number in a fraction. So they have to be the same in order to add or subtract fractions. So we got to find a least common denominator. Okay, so then what do we do next? Step 2, we change both fractions to the same denominator, and I'm going to not write it all out for time's sake, by multiplying. Okay, this should be review from adding fractions with Miss Hitchcock. So change both fractions to the same denominator by multiplying the same number to the, good job, the numerator, which is the top number, and the denominator, which is the bottom number. Okay, if you're a little lost here, that's okay. We're going to do a lot of examples. So bear with me. Okay, the third step is you only subtract the numerators, only the top numbers. So you're only subtracting the numerators. Okay, once you get that common denominator, it stays. Okay, when we subtract fractions, the what? What did I just say? The denominators always stay the same. Okay. Now, step 4, the last thing we do is reduce. What's another word for reduce or simplify? Okay. Or simplify the fractions, or change a mixed number or a mixed fraction if we get an improper. So if you get a bigger number on the top, a bigger number in your numerator, when you get your final answer, you have to change it back to a mixed. Okay, and we're gonna talk about that in a minute. Okay, yay! Now we have the right answer since we followed the steps every time. Great. Okay, here we go. Now let's try some real examples from our graphic organizer. So now you'll have notes on steps 1 through 4 tomorrow in class if you need help on that. Okay? Now let's subtract 3/4 minus 2/5 equals C. Okay? C is our variable. So what does the variable C represent? Well, what's our first step here? We got to find what C represents by actually subtracting the fractions. Okay, so what's our first step from our graphic organizer that we just did? Okay, find the least common multiple, very good. The least common multiple, okay, of the denominators to find the least common denominator. Okay, so we're finding the least common multiples, okay? Now, what do we have here? So let's start, what I always tell my kids is make sure you start with that, the bigger one. So in this case, 2/5 has a bigger denominator than 3/4. So you always start with 5. Oh, sorry. You would start with 5. So let's start saying our multiples. Okay, 5, 10, 15, 20. Okay, do I need to go any more? Well, I see one that I know 4 can go into. So let's start naming our 4. So we have 4, 8, 12, 16, and then we have 20, okay, right? So what's the least common? Well, none of these match, but when I get to 20, these are my least common multiples. Now, Miss Hitchcock went over this with you when you added and subtracted. So we're doing the same thing here. So this gives you more practice for adding also. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this out, and so you need to be rewriting it with me, okay? Now, notice how I rewrote it horizontally. Whenever you do this, you always need to make sure you rewrite it vertically because it's so much easier. So let me well, that's okay. We'll just rewrite it right here. Okay, so 3/4 minus 2/5. So I rewrote it vertically now. Watch how much easier this is. Let me get another pen here. So let me get the ink color. Let's do this in purple. Okay, So how do I get to my common denominator? Well, I'm going to multiply this whole fraction times what to get 20 in the bottom? Very good, times 5. Okay, so whatever I do to the bottom or the top, I got to do the same thing. So this would give me 15 over 20. So now I have the common denominator I want. So how would I get from 5 to 20? Well, let's multiply this times 4. Oops. Times 4. Very good. So 2 times 4. So then this would give me 8 over 20. Okay? So now, guys, here's what we need to do. Just like I said before, what do we got to do to our fractions? Just like adding, what do we do now when we subtract? Exactly. What's 15 minus 8 would give me 7. Okay? And then what, you have to keep your denominator, so what's my denominator? 20. So my answer would be 7/20. Okay, very good. So that's my answer, 7/20. So do I need to simplify? Can anything go into both of those? No. So that's my final answer, 7/20. Okay? All right, let's try some with, what do we call these kinds of numbers? Okay, let's look at, what do we call these kinds of numbers when it has a whole number and then it has a fraction? Call these mixed numbers. Very good. Okay, so this one's a little bit different, so stay with me. We need to find the least common multiple for each of these, okay, and then in order to find the least common denominator. So it means the same thing, and I'm going to shorten that. Okay, so let's find our least common denominator. Well, remember I always said start with the bigger number, that way you can find it easier. So we don't even have to do 2. Let me show you. Okay, so let's count by 3, so it'd be 3, 6, 9, oh, what do I see here? Okay, can 2 go into 6? Yeah. So my common denominator would be 6, because if I start listing this out, 2, 4, 6, there's my common denominator, okay, because it's the least common multiple when I list out my multiples. Okay, so like I said here, it's written horizontally. I need to write it vertically. So 6 2/3 minus 3 1/2. Okay, now what you've got to remember is you do not do anything to these whole numbers until you've gotten your fraction. So I want you to, if you don't touch your computer screen, but put your finger over the 6 and 3. You're ignoring that right now. You do not worry about your whole numbers until the very end, okay? And in just a second, you're going to have to worry about them sooner. But right now, we're not worrying about them. Okay, so how would I get from, let me get my red pen back so you can see the different colors. Okay, so how would I get my common denominator? Okay, very good. 2 times what? Oh, why isn't it red? Hold down 1 second. Okay, maybe it's not going to change. Anyway, okay, 2 times what, or actually 3 times what gives me 6. Okay, very good, 2. So whatever I do to the top, I got to do to the bottom. Bring over your whole number because you're not worrying about it. So this would be 4 over 6. Okay, what would this turn into? Well, 2 times 3 gives me 6. 1 times 3. So this would be 3 3/6. Okay, now I have common denominators. Now I can finally subtract. Okay, so remember what I said. Do not worry about your whole numbers yet. Okay, so 4 minus 3 would be what? Good. Only subtract the numerators. Keep my common denominator always. Okay, so then it would be 1/6. Now I'm going to worry about this. What's 6 minus 3? Would be 3. Okay, so my answer is 3 1/6. Okay, easy guys. It's just like adding except you subtract your whole numbers. Or subtract your numerator, sorry. Okay, now down here let's write down what we just did. We subtract whole numbers after you find a common denominator and what? And then you subtract the fractions. Okay, so we subtracted fractions before we worried about our whole numbers. So that's what we're going to do right now. So you subtract whole numbers after you find a common denominator, just like we just did here. And then after you subtract the fraction part. Okay, the whole numbers go last in this case. Okay? Okay, guys, now, if you want to pause me and take a little bit of a break, that is totally fine with me, and then come back because this is kind of a whole nother ball game here. Sometimes, let me get my red back. Oh, hello. Guys, when you have fractions that, well, let's just talk about it. Okay, what happens when I can't subtract my numerators with fractions? Okay, this is called borrowing. Okay, it's called borrowing. We have to borrow from our whole numbers, okay? Can you take 23 candy bars from me if I only have 17? No, you cannot. What kind of number would I get, guys? We talked about this since the beginning of the year, okay? I always said this when we talked about integers, right? Okay, So I know what y'all are thinking. We're thinking about integers, correct? You're saying, okay, well, I'm going to end up with negative then if I can't subtract, right? Well, and with fractions, guys, no, you cannot have negative numbers in your numerators. We have to borrow from our whole numbers. So you cannot have negative numbers just in your numerators, okay? So that's something that we need to work on. This is the hardest thing for kids, but I think if I go slow enough and you listen, I think we'll be good. Borrowing's a tough thing to get, but I think we can do it. Okay, let's start by drawing a pictorial representation. That means a picture. Okay, if you see this long, weird word, it means a picture. Pictorial representation. Okay, so what's the same thing as 3 and 4/4? Well, let's draw 3 holes. Okay, I'm going to color these in. I'm going to draw 3 holes. And I'm going to draw my last one. I'm going to cut it into fourths, and I'm going to color in all my fourths. So what does this equal? Count how many circles you have. Very good. This is the same thing as 4. Do you notice what's 4 over 4 equal 1? So what's 3 plus 1? That would equal 4. Okay? Let's do 3 and 3/8. Okay, I'm going to draw 3 circles and color them in because they're holes. Okay? Then I'm going to draw my last one and split it into 8 pieces. Okay? Oh, that's so wonderful. They're not equal, but we're going to pretend they are. Okay, so what does this equal? Well, I have 3 holes, and then I made this one into 3 holes because what does 8 over 8 means? It means 1. Okay, so what's 3 plus 8 over 8? Well, what's 3 plus 1? It means 4. So see how we can represent with a pictorial representation? We can represent fractions in the same way. Okay, so let's write the number 5 in different ways. Okay, so let's write the first way. I'm going to do the first one. Give me a number between 1 and 10. All right, whatever you did your number, write it on the top and write it on the bottom. I'm going to say 3. I just made it up. So does 4 and 3 over 3 mean the same thing as 5? Yeah, I just made up the denominator and the numerator here. Okay, think of a number between 1 and 10, and you try it out. All the whole numbers have to be 4 because 4 plus something. Okay, so you make it up. It does not matter. I'm going to do 4 and 9/9. Is that the same thing as 5? Yes, all of these equal the same thing as long as we have a 1 over here. So give me another number, or you write it on your own. Okay, let's do 7. So 4 and 7/7. Does that equal 5? Okay, so see how many ways we can represent the number 5. Okay, and this was going to help you in just a second. Okay, all right, now, examples of borrowing. I've only done 2 examples because I'm going to go in detail with you over class, and I don't want to make this video so long, but let's try this out. Okay, go step by step with me. We're going to take our time. There's this one and then one more, and then we're done. Okay, 9 and 3/8 minus 7 and 2/3. All right, here we go. Let's find a common denominator first. So we're going to ignore those whole numbers. We're going to ignore 7 and 9 really fast. We're going to find a common denominator. So what would my common denominator be between 8 and 3? Well, I'm going to list my 8s really fast. Okay, so I have 8. Let's count by 8s. 8, 16. What's the next one? 24. Okay, oh, C1. So it's got to be 24 because I know 3 can go into that because 3 doesn't go into 8 or 16. Okay, so what times 8 gives me 24? Well, 8 times 3 gives me 24. Whatever, do the bottom, I have to do the top. Let's just bring that 9 over. So then my denominator would be 24. And this 3 times 3 would be 9. Okay, now let's do the same thing over here. What times 3 gives me 24? Well, 8. Okay, and I have to do the same thing. So then I have 7. Keep that whole number. And then I change my denominator to 24. 8 times 2 would be 16. Okay, now, tell me if you see a problem here. I can subtract 9 minus 7 because that won't give me a negative number, correct? Okay, and then, but Ms. Smith, you told me I subtract the numerators. Okay, can I subtract 9 minus 16? If I have 9 pieces of candy, can you take 16 from me? No, and we can't have negatives here because of because that's just a rule. You can't have a negative numerator without the rest of the problem being negative. So no, you can't. Okay, so we're going to change 9 to something else. Remember how we represented 4 and 5 in different ways? Let's represent 9 in a different way, and let's just do 9 first. So if I have a common denominator, don't you think I need to have that common denominator in my problem? Well, yeah. So let's change this to 8. And what do you think I should have my denominator as? Well, of course, I need to have it as a common denominator. So I'm going to change this to 8 and 24 over 24. Does that equal 9? Okay, well, before we changed whole numbers to a fractional form, and this is another way to represent 9, because 8 plus 1 gives you 9. So now we change 9, and we still have 9 and 24ths over here that we still have to take care of. Okay, so now I have 8 and 24 over 24 plus 9 over 24. Now, easy as pie, I have 8 as my mixed number. Now what's 24 plus, well, of course, my denominator is always going to be 24, because that's the point of this. So what's 24 plus 9? Okay, very good. It would be 33. Okay, now you say, Miss Smith, you can't have an improper fraction here. Well, that's the point of this, okay? That's the point of doing this. Now just bring this all the way over here, and now I have 7 and I have 16 over 24. Now can I subtract? Yes, now you can subtract now, okay? So let's subtract our numerators first. Well, we got to make sure, of course, our denominator always stays the same. So what's 33 minus 16? Well, it changes to 13, changes to 2. So 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. Okay, and then 2 minus 1 would be 1, so I have 17 over 24. Now I've got to do my whole numbers. What's 8 minus 7? 1. So my answer is 1 and 17/24. Now guys, remember, you really need to know this before you come to class, because that's the point of mixed videos. If you need to rewind me and look at this again, then please do so, or you need to come into a tutorial and make sure you know it. Now we have one more, which I'm going to do the same exact thing, okay? You'll need to know this before you come to class for the reasons that we talked about, okay? Okay, one more. Bear with me. Okay, what happens? Uh-oh. I have 86, and I have no fraction. How am I going to get a common denominator without a fraction here? Okay? Can we change 86 to another number? Well, remember what we did before? We changed it we borrowed. So we did 85, and then what denominator do you want? Well, let's look here, so we don't have to do more work. What's my denominator? 8. So let's do 85 and 8 eighths. So does 85 plus 1 give me 86? Awesome, we just borrowed. Okay, now look how easy this is, okay? So what is 85 minus 25? 8, 7, so we'd have 60. Okay, so what's 8 minus 5 here? 3 eighths. So I subtracted my numerators, kept my denominator, and look how easy that was. 60 and 3 eighths, okay? Now, this one's a little bit different because what happens? Well, we had a whole number to start with and no fraction. That's why it was so easy to transfer. But remember, if you had 86 and 1/2, you would have to add, the 1/2 after you got a common denominator and all that stuff, okay? Sorry, I just hope I just didn't confuse you. But we'll go over this in class tomorrow, but make sure you know before you come to class. So maybe rewind me on number 2 again and go over that problem again, so maybe you can practice a little bit more. Okay, guys, now scroll down right now and answer the questions and press submit. It is your responsibility. If you do not press submit tonight, you will not get credit at all. Okay, so go and press submit. All right, guys, can't wait to see y'all tomorrow. Bye.